is a senior pastor of Word in Action Christian Center in Detroit, Michigan. And he is here today to talk about the new series on Oxygen entitled Preachers of Detroit. Help me welcome Mr. Bishop Clarence Langston. Hey, Bishop, welcome.
God bless you so much, Sister Charmaine. I appreciate that wonderful, beautiful introduction. I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited to have you on the show. And you know, one thing I like about you being on Preachers of Detroit, because you have a unique testimony. I know a lot of other preachers do, but you're not afraid to share it. And that's one thing I want to talk about in the show. But first, I want to say now, your Preachers of Detroit kicked off with a bang, talking about mega churches, fancy cars. I'm talking about big houses and even women bishops. Did you know this series was going to go in this direction?
No, did not have a sense of which direction it was going to go in. You know, as you know, when they tape, you know, a lot of times we are not at the same place at the same time. We don't know how it's going to be edited. We don't know how the show is going to start, or, you know, on Friday nights, I'm excited myself to see what's going to happen because I don't have a clue, but it has been exciting. A lot of major things have happened, and it is a major buzz.
Now, since the series has aired, how has your life changed, or if it has changed, since the series began? More people noticing you now on the street? Do they come up to you with questions?
Oh, most definitely. You know, first of all, I want to say it changed in my personal life because what you see with Pastor Langston on the Preachers of Detroit, it's 100% real. I'm authentic. I'm being myself. I am very transparent. There is, I'm showing my emotions. I'm allowing my heart to flow. The reactions you see, the responses you see, that's who I am. But I say that to say that the show, I mean, I really went through a lot of healing and deliverance myself while I was doing the show because, you know, we dealt with some things that I thought I had overcame or certain things in my life, you know, sometimes as African Americans, and I can only speak from that perspective because I'm African American, but I believe we probably have it in all of our families. Those things that we just don't talk about, those things that are taboo, and you just get over it and, you know, you move on in life. And so I dealt with some dark issues that were in my life and my family. And so, you know, I was able to go through a healing, and what really blessed me while I was going through my healing, I didn't realize as people would watch it that a lot of people would be able to relate. And, you know, I've received a lot of messages, people walking up to me in the street, thank you. I was able to go back and revisit some issues in my life. I was able to go to the cemetery, and visit my mom or my dad or my child. So, it's really been touching for me because, you know, it was real ministry for me.
Because, for those who don't know, if you haven't watched the series yet, he went to visit his mother, was murdered. And how old were you when your mom was murdered?
I think it was I know I was young, around, like he said, between the age of 5 and 6.
Wow, so you were very young, and you were raised by your aunt.
Yeah. And, right, I thought she was my aunt. I remember this woman. I remember she was special. It was something about when she was around that I really loved about her being around. But of course, you know, life goes on, and you know, you're young, and you know, I would see pictures of her, and it was like, man, this, I always felt that she was special, but I knew her as my aunt. And I read a newspaper article and an obituary because back then your grandparents, they kept everything in a photo album, and just happened to be reading it. You know, I think I was around the age of 12 at the time. And, man, it's like my brain literally just snapped. It was like something popped. And from then on, it was just a crazy journey in my life because I didn't believe anything that I saw or anything that I heard to be real anymore. So I didn't trust anybody. I really became really rebellious and just really had a meltdown in my life during that season.
So when you read that article, is that when you found out that she was actually your mother and not your aunt?
Right, absolutely. Wow. You know, it spoke of her having a child, and his name was my name, and it was like, no, I'm not reading this right. So I read it again. I think I read it like 3 times, and then I took the photo album into the bathroom because I just couldn't. It was like my mind wasn't registering right. It just couldn't be because all of a sudden in the moment I said, well, if that's my mom, then who is this person? Because my mom that raised me, who's done a wonderful job, and I just love her, was sitting at the dining room table with the rest of the family. It was a family dinner. And then I started saying, now I'm questioning everything. Who's my brother? Who's my sister?
Wow.
And I'm, is my grandmother really my grandmother? I mean, it was like all of a sudden I'm hearing a voice, and I didn't even understand at that moment what was going on. So I retreated to the bathroom so that I could really kind of, I remember sitting there trying to, you imagine at 12 years old, I'm trying to gather my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And, from then on, I was just never the same. And so the enemy, how the devil works, he made me look at it from the negative, not the positive. And so he put that negative spin on it that, that they lied to you, they don't love you, you're not the same as the rest of your brothers and sisters. And so immediately I just went into a state of rebellion.
So how did you come out of that? Because I know on the show, you talk about your life. You were a drug dealer, right?
Right.
Started
selling drugs with my friends,
mm-hmm.
and the whole shebang, and ended up, I went through five of the high schools here in Detroit. Each time I ended up having to run for my life, getting into it with the gangs at the different schools, and so my mother would have to move me from one school to another school to eventually she was trying to move me out of state.
Wow.
And my friends convinced me not to move. I stayed here, and she put me out of the house, and went through a whole little journey with my friends, and people coming after us, shooting at us on the streets of Detroit, and just that wild life, and ending up homeless, and losing everything and having nothing, and remember coming to myself one day because it was like my mind was playing tricks on me. I mean, my mind was cloudy. It was like death was all around me. At that time, I felt like the black sheep of the family. I felt like I couldn't be loved by anybody, including my mother. So I just wanted to end my life. And I never forget one day putting the gun up to my head, falling to my knees, and just pulling the trigger and wanting to die. I thank God for his grace and his mercy that was with me on that day, because I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'd have missed out on all these wonderful blessings. And so that's a testimony in itself, of how good and gracious God has been.
That is awesome. And now look at you. Who would ever thought the man from the streets was going to end up being a preacher? Not just a preacher. God has elevated you to bishop.
Yeah, I would have never thought it. Because my family, my mother's side of the family, they all grew up Jehovah's Witness.
Mm.
So my background, religious belief is Jehovah's Witness. I didn't even believe in the church.
Wow.
And, I remember one day I was walking down a street called Joy Road in Detroit, and and I was trying to find something, to eat. I was hungry, and I remember asking God, Lord, just bless me with $1. If I could find $1, I was looking for money on the ground, trying to find, here we can turn in, popping bottles for 10 cents, and if I could just get $1, I could buy a bag of chips and a Snickers. For some days, I survived on that. In the morning I would eat half, and then in the afternoon or the evening I would eat the other half. And so I remember this day in particular because I said, Lord, just can you just bless me with $1? And I remember the Lord saying to me, just so clearly, and I didn't understand it then, Clarence, will you feed my sheep? Now, can you imagine that, Charmaine? I'm homeless.
Whoa.
I don't have nothing. I don't even believe God can talk to you. I'm raised up Jehovah's Witness, and I'm hearing this voice say to me, Clarence, would you feed my sheep? Now, these years later, almost 27 years later now, I mean, now, I know what that voice was. I know what the voice was saying. But he was calling me even then, and I thought, and that was one of the things that when God told me to do this show, that this platform would be huge for even being a witness to people, brothers and sisters that may be out there and feel like they're at the end of their road because they don't have, all of the degrees, and they didn't take the right path, and, they've made so many horrible decisions or so many choices in life. But to know that they can find God and put God first, and he can turn it all around. I'm married now. My wife is an attorney, 3 beautiful children, beautiful ministry here in Detroit. And, and that excites me that the same thing that God did for me, he can do for others.
Amen. How did the opportunity for this show even come about for you? How was it presented to you?
It was really amazing. I'll never forget one day after a service, somebody told me, said, there's some people here from California, they want to meet with you. I said, they want to meet with me? They want to meet with me for what? And, they began to say that, that they're from California and they want to talk to you about the preachers of Detroit. I said, preachers of Detroit? I wasn't thinking about no preachers of Detroit.
Wow.
I was just, I had served my bishop faithfully for 25 years, armor bearing and serving in the capacity that he needed. And the Lord had just told me, 9 years from that moment to start a ministry by the name of Word and Action Christian Center. So I was busy. So Charmaine, I was doing so many things, and so they had pursued me for a moment, because I was, I just didn't see it. And then God began to convict me, and I said, God, you want me to do this show? And from then on, I said, okay, this is the will of God. I said, I'll do it. And I'm so glad that I did it because I had the opportunity. And when I've learned through and by everything that I did not want to do that God called me to do, it was never about Clarence. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want people to understand, even as they see him in his show. I didn't do it because I wanted to be a celebrity. I didn't do it just because I saw a platform. I did it because, first of all, God asked me to do it. And then now I'm excited about it because I realize it's not even about me. It's about how many other people can be blessed by my testimony and my story.
Now, I have a question for you because we know the conversation that you had with Pastor Bullock. How were you able to keep your composure? Because we know he's the antagonist on the show. I was like, I don't know what I would have did. I said, that brother good. See, he real saved.
Oh my goodness, and it's so funny because when it was all over with, I was really upset. I just couldn't believe it, and I kind of sat there for a moment, and I went home because I wasn't sure if I was mad at him. I wasn't sure if I was mad, at the cameras. I didn't know if they had set it up.
Right.
But when I got home, it was like I felt like Jacob. When the Bible speaks about how Jacob wrestled with himself. Because when I initially got home, I realized I was kind of mad at God too, because there was like a white chalkboard that was in front of my mind that was blank.
Wow.
Because I was trying to conjure up some things that I wanted to say to him, but they couldn't come up. And so it was late that night that I realized that God really blessed me, and God showed me how that they used to, when I was in the street, they called me Clay. I realized that Clay was dead and he was no longer there. So I wanted him to come up, but he wasn't there.
I couldn't find him.
And what you saw, right? And so what you saw was really who I am now, and that blew my mind. And that's what God showed me. He said, "Son, you're not that person no more."
See, you wanted BC before Christ to come back.
There you go. I wanted Clay to come up out. I wanted Clay to come up out.
But it was truly a testimony. It was a witness to watch, and I just wanted to share that with you because we all said, "Boy, if that was me, he should have said blah blah blah." But it was a testimony for the world to see what God did in your life.
I received calls from bishops all over the world, like, you know what I would have done. So I'm glad that I could be that witness.
He, if Bullock, if that's him or if it's not, he is playing that role. Because I'm telling you, he is stirring the pot. He has me cracking up. I'm like, is he for real? He gotta be acting.
Pastor Bullock is over the top.
Well, I just wanted to thank you so much. And then, too, I wanted to know, have you received any negative feedback since this show has been on? And if so, how have you handled the feedback?
Oh, most definitely. You always get both. But how I handle it is once I know in my resolve that God has told me to do something, then I take it to the cross. And I say, Lord, forgive them. They know not what they say. They know not what they do. Because I'm just doing an assignment and I'm not a man pleaser. So it makes it easier. And I remove myself away from social media. I remove myself away from negative comments. And I just kind of live my life, because people don't have the opinion and they have that right. I had my opinion, but, I know I'm in the will of God and I'm excited about it now.
Amen. And lastly, what do you want people to take away from watching this series?
I want them to take away that what we minister as ministers, that we have to live it behind the scene. As they watch my life, I want them to be able to see my family. I want to see them be able to see the decisions and choices that I have to make as a man. That I have to operate in the same word that I teach the people. I have to operate in the same word, and that the word works.
Yeah, and if you work the word, Amen. Amen to that. Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. And I want to remind the viewing audience and make sure that you tune in tonight to Preachers of Detroit, airing on Oxygen every episode. I mean, this is the show that got you on your toes for the next episode, I must say. And it's a good thing because it keeps you coming back.
And thank you so much, Charmaine, for having me.
You are so welcome, and you have a blessed day, Bishop.
You too. Bye-bye.
Lady Charmaine live on Friday night.